Hello and welcome back to Virtual Monsterama 2020. I'm Darren Bush. I'm the co-director of the literature track for Monsterama 2020. I have for you tonight the second installment in a two-part panel. So Bad It's Good, we watch anniversary B movies. And this is the after party, I think that's the right term. What we're going to do is I'm going to let my esteemed panelists introduce themselves, and then we are going to get into the mess of what we're going to talk about for the next hour. So I'm going to start with this young lady right here. Ellie, if you'll introduce yourself to our esteemed audience.
Hi, I'm Ellie Rain. I'm the author of the award-winning fantasy series, The Necroscene Chronicles. I write about demons, reapers, and dragons.
Excellent, thank you. Sarah, will you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I wrote a book about drunk trolls pulling a heist that came out last year. I've also got some short fiction in the Jordan Con anthologies, some articles for Dan Cobalt's Science and Science Fiction Fact and Fantasy series, and some Writer's Digest credentials, I guess.
Excellent. Kyle, will you introduce yourself?
I'm Kyle Mitchell, a distinguished Toastmaster, a longtime AtlantaCon goer, published author of 2 books of poetry, and also a proud member of the Dead Pirates of Sci-Fi fandom that run con suites at many of Atlanta's conventions.
Excellent, thank you. And for those of you who haven't heard me say it about 8 times this weekend, I'm Darren Bush. I'm also a science fiction and fantasy author. My short stories are floating around here in the ether, but mostly I am a contributor, create panels and run panels for a lot of Atlanta science fiction conventions, especially Virtual Monsterama 2020. So let's get right into this. If you missed the before panel, we have got 6 movies that we discussed a little bit in the before panel. This is that moment where, because it's virtual, I'm going to say, if you haven't seen that panel, pause, go watch the panel, and come back. And you're back, and you've watched the first panel. That's excellent. So now, sorry, I love that joke. I'm never going to stop doing that joke. So let's go over our 6 movies very briefly. Let me just give you the list so you can look forward to the hilarity. We've got Tremors, Gremlins 2, Arachnophobia, Beneath the Planet of the Apes, Little Shop of Horrors, and Brides of Dracula. So what I want to do is let's just do this backwards. Let's start with Brides of Dracula. The first thing that I want us to find out from the 4 of us is who watched it and who didn't watch it, because that is a very interesting part of the story. And also, I think that what I will do is, if I'm pressed, I will try and provide information about where to find these things online. But honestly, we've got 6 movies to go over, so I don't think we're going to waste any time talking about YouTube and Netflix and Amazon Prime, although I believe I was able to find all 6 of these movies online, either for free or for relatively cheap, depending on what streaming service you've got. So, okay, all right. So I saw Kyle's hand go up. Does that mean that you watched Brides of Dracula?
Yes.
Okay, then I'm going to put my hand up too. I saw this. All right, so keep your hand up if it's the first time you've ever seen this one. Okay, all right, good. So Kyle, you were eager. What's your take on this this film?
Well, I mean, it's, I guess, kind of, you've got a classic horror actor, you know, and sci-fi actor, all-around actor, right? Peter Cushing in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know what to expect going into it. And, you know, Brides of Dracula, unfortunately, the brides were not as big of, you know, heroines, except for, I guess, the main bride. But overall, it was, I think, pretty solid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they couldn't really call it The Bride to Be of Dracula. I don't think the marketing people would let them get away with that. Sarah, what was your overall impression of this one?
I thought it was gorgeous and lush and beautiful and filled with useless women. I was very angry at the Brides of Dracula standing there for like 3 scenes at the end watching their man get, spoiler alert.
Okay, so let's be clear. 60 years, no more spoilers. Go right ahead.
Right. But like, seriously, I think if you go to that set, they're still standing there in the doorway going,
Oh, you mean 60 years later?
Yes, they still are. I mean, they're immortal. But I mean, I thought it was gorgeous, and just some of that imagery, it still pops up in my head. You know, so I really enjoyed it. But yeah, I wanted more badass bridery.
Okay, badass bridery. I'm writing that down. Ellie, what about you? What was your takeaway from this one?
I guess my overall takeaway was I kind of preferred the radio drama that I heard the first time of this story. I'd never seen the movie. I'd only heard an audio drama by the Atlanta Radio Theater Company. And I really liked their rendition of it. And all the voice actors actually sounded, evocative. They sounded really sultry. They sounded, like they were beckoning, and everyone actually sounded terrified and scared, and like it really had you just like going, "Ooh, what's gonna happen? Oh, what's gonna happen?" And then so watching the movie for the first time was kind of like, oh, why is he high? Is Dracula high? Because his eyes are really red. He looks blazed, and all the vamp ladies were just kind of like, that was kind of it, and it just didn't really emotionally get me the way that voice performance did with Artsy. So maybe I was just spoiled because of like the new rendition of how they would sound in my head. So my image of it mentally was completely different from Blade's Dracula.
Yeah, I have to admit that I have to agree with Sarah that the movie was visually very nice. I mean, it was beautifully done. But like the fact that brides is the first word of the title, and they were more like bridesmaids.
Yeah,
Kind
they
of
didn't
sitting,
really do much.
just kind of clutching their pearls and going, "Whenever you need us, Drac." It's like no. I mean, the movie is 60 years old, but still, it was.
Did they actually bite anyone in the whole movie? I don't remember them biting anyone. I remember
The
them
brides?
threatening. Yes. I remember them threatening and just being in the corner looking all gorgeous and being like, but that's kind of all I remember them doing. Did they actually attack anyone?
I don't think so. I think what the movie was trying to convey was that was the terrible price to pay for dealing with vampires. Like they were like, bitten by a vampire, the home game. They were just standing in the corner like Price is Right models going, this is what you could win, an eternity of this. It's just like a lifetime supply of L'Oreal for undead. It's just amazing how, as Sarah said, they were just kind of window dressing. They were supposed to convey this terrible sense of consequence, but weren't they a little too hot to be scary?
No, you can be hot and scary at the same time.
No, they were hot.
Absolutely.
But were they hot and scary?
No.
They were hot. They were not scary.
Okay. Kyle, you're with me on this, right? Hot but not scary, and they confused my tiny male brain, is what I'm saying. Go ahead, Kyle.
I wondered that, so when you first see the Baron, right? He was a Baron, not Count, so he was Baron. And he's chained, his leg chained to the wall or whatever by his mother. So that fact where we start the story made me wonder, had there been other brides before? Like, this is his MO, and because as soon as he was let out by our heroine, that like she's like, no, this is going to happen again, this kind of thing. So I'm thinking like, okay, so what happened to the other brides that this is like his regular thing?
I didn't consider that. Yeah.
They mentioned that the mother was bringing him young girls while he was chained up. They mentioned that at one point.
Did they?
I don't know where they went. They were off doing fun things.
Dry.
But I was confused by the servant, though. I didn't know what was going on with her, because she went from helping the mother to all of a sudden becoming this,
Maybe she was like tranced, like, I think he tranced the main woman character. I think it seems like it. Okay, so maybe
it was a little too subtle. The maid was the Renfield character. She was the non-vampire helper who could go out when the sun was up and could do certain things to help the vampire out. So she started off being very kind of, don't know what's going on here, but she ended up being very Renfield to the point where she like attacked Dr. Van Helsing and everything.
I gotta say, the scene where she's just on the grave of the first of the first girl, saying, "It's okay, you can come out. You can come out now. The master is waiting." And she's just patting and petting the dirt. That got me. that gave me chills. I was like, "Oh wow, this is making me really uncomfortable." And like, I like what they did with the cinematography, where they actually made the camera angle make it seem like you're the one looking through the bushes, catching this secret act and this secret conversation. And it just kind of added to that creepiness. So that was a really great panning for how they framed it.
I was screaming at that scene. I was screaming at Van Helsing, asking him to do something. I'm like, why are you just going to let this happen? Isn't this like your job? You're a vampire hunter.
Yeah, it's like get in there, man. Get in there. There's 3 more movies. Go. Ellie, you bring up a good point, which is I felt like I was interrupting. Like I was the bad guy in this voyeuristic position of watching her kind of massage the dirt above the grave. And so that was absolutely the creepiest moment of the whole movie, is that this non-vampire, the Renfield human, is like, she's just like petting a puppy. It's like, "Oh, you're good, let me give you some milk." It's like, ugh.
It's such an intimate moment.
Yeah.
For a corpse, but you can't even see the corpse, and I don't know why, but not seeing the corpse and just seeing her pet the dirt over it was 10 times more creepy than if there had been a corpse. It's like you had that intimate of an emotion for something that you couldn't even see, but just having that layer of loose dirt that you could just scrape over your fingers was enough for you. It's like when you're sleeping next to your significant other and you're like, "Oh, I just want to touch your shoulder with my fingertips and I'm good, and then we can go to sleep and I'm okay with that." That's basically what it felt like. It's like, and just a teensy bit is enough for you, is how much you love them. And that's another factor, like, wow, I'm weirdly kind of relating to this, which is also really creepy.
I want a significant other that loves me like that.
Yeah. But 1 minute on this movie, guys. Any parting shots? Sarah, you've
that image of the shadow cross at the end, that was powerful.
Yeah.
It took me a minute, and then when I realized it, I was like, wow, they really thought that through. That was really creative, man.
Yes.
It's like, I was like, what is up with this windmill? Oh, okay. There it goes. Wow.
Universal, right? So you gotta have a windmill in it, and
okay, all right.
It's on brand, very on brand.
On brand.
And then to make it into the shadow, because at first I like, we were live tweeting kind of during it, our watch, and I didn't get it at first, and then like, oh wow, that's really clever. It was kind of slow building up to, unfortunately, the first 30 minutes was really slow. I almost stopped watching it, and then at the final 15 minutes, whatever, climactic fire and tussling.
Okay, guys. It was an interesting ending. All right, we got more movies to bash on, so let's move on to the next one, which is the one I'm really looking forward to talking about, is Little Shop of Horrors. Now, let me be clear. This is the 60th anniversary of the original, which is not the Rick Moranis musical, which we took care of last year at Monsterama. I want to go last on this one. So who wants to tackle this one first?
Want to do, did everyone raise your hand? Did everyone?
Oh yes, thank you. Point of order. Yep. And who was? This is the first time they'd seen it. Okay, so Kyle and I apparently had seen it before for some strange reason. Oop, I'm sorry, I gave it away. Okay, good. So we all saw it. Ladies, first time you've seen it? What do you think?
Wow. Oh man. I was laughing so much the entire movie just because of the quirky characters. I saw the more recent one with the musical with the guy from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. But I didn't remember the story. And seeing the characters in this original one, I was just sitting there going, "Oh my God, she's a hypochondriac," and like, oh my God, I see the symmetry between the guy who eats flowers versus the flower that eats humans. Like, oh my God, the parallelism.
Oh my God, I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
Yes, that's why he was there. That was his purpose in the story, was to have that contrast.
Yeah.
And that and the opposites, and like, they didn't make any sense, but that was the point, and each character had a purpose, and it didn't make sense, but it did make sense at the same time. But it was so funny. I didn't expect to laugh this hard at a horror movie. I really didn't.
Okay, so last panel we were on, Sarah, you emphasized that you like absurdity.
I loved this movie.
Okay, there we go. All right, Kyle owes me $10. No, I'm so, okay, you love this movie.
I did. I laughed the entire time. I thought it was hilarious. I thought the only scary part of any of it was Jack Nicholson.
What's that?
When he was going in to get the dental work done.
The masochist.
Oh my God, that dude was so funny. Oh man.
Yeah, Jack Nicholson. I think it was his first movie.
I think it was his first movie, yeah.
Everything about it was hilarious. I mean, when he walks away from first off, why did he take the dead guy in the first scene? He didn't even know that that's what Audrey 2 wanted yet. Like, I don't know why he took him, but he also took him and noticed in this tiny little bag, like this big guy.
He is. He doesn't know any better. Oh gosh. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it.
He's got this tiny little bag, and that's all the remains of this guy.
That's right, Felicity.
Awesome. It was fantastic.
Kyle, what do you think?
I want a subscription to Pain magazine.
Oh yeah.
It was the magazine that he was reading from, Jack Nicholson's character. That just classic. So which is, I think, the reason why I watched this movie the first time as well, because I heard that it was Jack Nicholson's first movie. You know, super young, and Roger Corman, and that kind of So yeah. I loved it, and seeing. I know I watched it in black and white. It's been colorized. I don't know if y'all watched the colorized version or the black and white. Yeah. And so, but yeah, it's classic. So great. And just the sense of humor that we love from the 86. I mean, there's so many interesting connections between all the movies that we watched. Actually, there's a lot of actresses, right? For instance, that plays Audrey. You're going to get to that?
We'll get to that. Okay. No spoilers. Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt, Kyle, but that is actually a spoiler. I gotta say, I'm watching this movie going, oh my goodness gracious! It is kind of painful to watch. The absurdity. If you're a fan of absurdity, this is 75 minutes of awesome, over the top, high quality absurdity. Like, he's fleeing from the cops and he runs into, of course, a tire storage yard. And hides amongst gigantic tractor tires. Because when you think of hiding from the cops, hiding inside of a tire is the first thing you think of.
And then toilets.
And then toilets. The puppet, I just get the feeling the director was under the table going, I don't need to hire a puppeteer, I'll just see more. The puppet was ridiculous.
That was a puppet?
No, Ellie, it was a real boy. Anyway, so
I didn't know what they did.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe it was a remote. 60 years ago. There's no telling. I just thought it was a guy under the table.
Great. It was great.
Like, it didn't even move, and he's like looking around, like what was that? And it wasn't moving. But then when he starts to actually have the dialogue with it, then it starts moving. So it's one of those, like, again, so bad it's good.
Yeah, and I think my
but I gotta
favorite. Oh, sorry.
No, real quickly. I'm Jewish. I'm from New York. Oi. The characters in this movie are so Jewish, like Jewish. I don't understand what that has to do with a flesh-eating alien from outer space, but Mel Brooks came to mind. Well, I was thinking about Mel Brooks, Jews versus alien plants, something like that. It's just, his name is Mushnick, his name is Seymour, the accents, the attitudes, is just.
I never realized that. I just took it at face value. Wow, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the mom
I'm
was a total
surprised.
stereotype.
Oh yeah, I'm so wondering why they skipped the obvious line from, oh, at least he's a dentist. That would have been. Okay, so Ellie, what were you gonna say?
I was going to say my favorite line was just the florist. I forget his name. The dad of
Mushnik.
Audrey, who took me a while to realize what their relationship was. I'm like, I don't know if this is his wife or his daughter, but I guess we'll find out soon. Was his daughter. Good to know. Anyway, so the florist, the dad, when he catches Seymour doing what he's doing with the foot, shoving the foot down the plant, the next day, everyone's coming in and like, oh, we're $85 in and it's only been 10 minutes till open. Wow, we're making so much money. And he's like, I'm making a lot of money. I lost it.
Oh God.
I lost it. I'm like, wow. Okay, so Seymour is not the only one at fault here. I think that's the key. He's not the only one at fault. Like, it started with him and his just complete ignorance and negligence and just clumsiness. But
Killed two
like,
people in 2 days.
and like but the florist knew what was happening and was like, well, I'm making a lot of money.
Yeah.
Just keep this quiet. So he knowingly did that. So like Seymour's not the only one at fault. And like that line, maybe it was the delivery, but it got me. I had to pause the movie to laugh, so I wouldn't miss anything afterwards.
Yeah. So 2-minute warning on this movie, guys. One thing I do want to point out is Audrey is an absolutely fabulous character. Her dialogue is incredible because she is a malaprop. Malapropism is when you say a word that sounds like it's right, but it's not. Like, she literally said the wrong word all the time, and they were all funny, and you kind of knew what she meant, so you could actually ignore her malaprops. But I was listening for them after the first one dropped, and I went, wait a minute. And like, I can't remember the specifics. Unfortunately, I wish I could right now, but you can easily go back and look them up. Every line of dialogue she had a word in it that was wrong, that if you thought about it, you're like, that's really funny. It was, considering how goofy and absurd this movie was, the dialogue was really clever. The writers had a really good time with this one.
Yeah, it was a really funny script.
It was. And if you basically assume that greed and self-centeredness fed the plant with human bodies, then if you can get over that, the rest of it is fine. Sarah, anything else that we missed?
Oh, I have like pages of notes on stuff. So,
all right, so hit us with a good one.
I just thought it was so much beautiful awkwardness crammed into one little movie. It made me happy.
All right, that's going to be on the quiz next week. Beautiful awkwardness. Excellent.
Oh my God, the end though. I don't remember if this was in the musical or not, but like my friend tried to warn me. It's really creepy when you get to the end of the original one.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I wasn't expecting what happened. Are we allowed to spoil it?
It's been 60 years. Go for it.
I don't like sorry. Bleep that later. The faces when they bloom and the flowers open up and it's the faces of the corpses. That was the creepiest thing ever. And like 60 years later, it's still that creepy. Oh my God, man. Holy crap. It's like I literally, I had the remote in my hand because I pause things a lot to like appreciate it, or because, 2-year-old. But like, she was not watching it at the time, but I'm just saying it's a habit now. So I had the remote in my hand, and then when the first thing opened up, it was no longer in my hand because it was like 6 feet away in the other side of the room. It had hit the wall because that's how far I just went, oh God! Like, what happened?
And I think, just like that, and I think that's a perfect place to stop and move on to our next movie with Ellie's summation of the ending.
So creepy, man. Oh my God.
Okay, so we're gonna veer away from creepiness for one movie and then come screaming back to creepiness. What we're gonna talk about next is the 50th anniversary of Beneath the Planet of the Apes, which is the second in the Planet of the Apes series. All right, so show of hands who watched it since the last panel. Okay, we got 3 out of 4. And who has seen it before this assignment? Really? Okay, excellent. So I have to indulge, and I have to go, ha 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 ha. So I saw it off my own copy, but it's been sitting, I have to admit, it's been sitting on the shelf for a while waiting for me to watch it. Okay, Kyle, when did you see this movie the first time?
It was like 99 or 2000 or something probably. And my buddy had like all the VHS. I mean, maybe it was even, no, yeah, I guess it probably was around 99 probably. And it had all of the movies, Planet of the Apes movies on VHS. And so we spent a weekend and we just watched all of them back to backs in order. Yeah.
Okay. So Ellie has escaped beneath the planet of the, okay, there she is. So Sarah, what about you? This is the first time you've seen it. What did you think?
I feel like I should connect with the themes, the ecological and sociological and scientific themes that are there, and I just didn't. I think it's the pacing and the costumes. To me, they just pull me right out of it. I wasn't a huge fan, at the risk of alienating people watching this.
So you're talking about the gorillas and the orangutans, those costumes.
Yes. And then there's scenes that like I pieced together afterwards what happened. And in fairness to my own attention span, I did have a 6-year-old chasing a 2-year-old, or the other way around the couch while I was trying to watch it, which did make for a distracting and less immersive experience. But yeah, I struggled a little bit with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sorry, I just had my 2-year-old come over here and scream, and so that's why.
Speaking of,
yeah,
it's
anyway.
virtual Monsterama. So Ellie, what was your reaction to this first viewing?
I gotta admit, I kind of wish I had seen the first one before jumping into the second one again.
Ooh.
I might have seen this when I was 5, and I might not have. I do not remember. But not having seen either one for probably a while or ever, the second one, I was like, okay, who are these people? What are they talking about? So these 2 apes know these 2 humans, and they also know that ape that is tied up, but they all seem like they're friends. I don't know what's going on here. I wish I had an explanation. I have never had so much appreciation for the Star Wars exposition reel of words to explain what happened prior to the story. I never understood it because, 90s kid, you go in and you're like, why are we being told what's happening? Shouldn't we be seeing this instead of being explained it? But after this movie, I have so much appreciation for that little exposition reel because I don't know what's going on. No clue. They're talking to some apes. I don't know what they're talking about. Now the humans are walking on their horse. They're riding on their horse and they're going along the beach, and they're doing, and they see the Statue of Liberty head in the sand, and he just goes, "God damn you, no!" And he starts sobbing, and I'm like, what's happening? Why is he so sad at the Statue of Liberty? Why? And it was at that point when I realized I had seen that scene before, but not from this movie. I'd seen that scene from Spaceballs. Now I know where it comes from.
So now you got to go back and watch Spaceballs again and appreciate that scene a little bit more.
Always.
I think the lesson of Ellie's little speech there is that this is Beneath the Planet of the Apes is a direct sequel. In fact, it's not just a direct sequel, which doesn't happen very much anymore. It is not only a direct sequel, but the first 7 minutes of Beneath the Planet of the Apes are just lifted out of the last 7 minutes of Planet of the Apes. So it's not even subtle that the two movies are like this with their timelines.
It takes them a while to get around to explaining even like a sentence worth of what might have happened in the first movie.
Yeah. So
Maybe.
So this potentially is a problem with Beneath the Planet of the Apes, is if you haven't seen the first movie, this movie makes, in all fairness to Ellie, it really doesn't make a lot of sense out of this context. The whole first movie is this struggle to get to the revelation of the Statue of Liberty, which is one of the most iconic shock endings of any science fiction movie ever. It's so iconic it ended up in Spaceballs, right? That means something. One thing that I thought that was really unfortunate about Beneath was their struggle to capture the magic again, because the first movie is really good. It's really worth it. Sorry about the costumes. The costumes are the same, Sarah. But
I like the costumes personally.
it was, it was 50 years ago, so I kind of am like, they didn't have Rick Baker and Stan Winston and George Lucas's Creature Shop and Jim Henson's Creature Shop, but I thought they did a really good job having there be literally hundreds of gorillas marching in the desert or in the canyon or whatever it was. There were some really amazing achievements in this film, but I think they were struggling so hard to get that first movie magic back that they forgot that they really should make a movie. Right? It was almost like an advertisement.
Just explain something about why are we here?
Yeah.
How did we get here? A teensy bit. Anything.
I did like how it came full circle though. Like it started off with Beware the Beast Man. And then they're going through this whole thing trying to make sure that the planet doesn't get obliterated. And they're dealing with, I guess, the mutants are the remainder of man, I guess. But then at the end where he makes that realization that, yeah, man is the beast. And you know what? It's got to go.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it did kind of come full circle there, which was pretty cool.
Yep. So, Kyle, you've seen all of the classic Planet of the Apes films. My understanding is that the second movie, this movie we're talking about, almost killed the franchise. Does the third movie ignore this movie, or how did they get to the third movie if he blew up the world?
There's a third
I honestly don't remember, but I do know there's at one point like a jump and where there's one, I don't know if it was the third or the fourth one, I think that has Ricardo Montalban in it as well, I think. And they go back, so it's kind of like a prequel to where they show when the apes were first kind of taking over, or even before that, like when they were in the program of testing, which we see in like the new, like the Matt Reeves, Planet of the Apes movies. So yeah, they each one seems like after the second one, which was just the straight pickup, where we left off, kind of it gets weirder, and there's most of them are really just bad, and they're just, which was my kind of memory of Beneath, was that it was really just, again, kind of like Star Wars too. I mean, like, oh well, we're gonna make another one because the first one made so much money, and they, you rushed probably the script of getting it and to say, well, let's give them more of what they loved in the first one. But yeah, I don't remember it being, that satisfying, or again, like you were saying, the first one was so magical because it actually had a point, but then I think they tried to do that, but not really repeat the success.
Yeah, and we've got about a minute left here for this movie. I want to say really quickly that the big revelation at the end of Beneath is that they have not just a nuclear weapon, but the nuclear weapon, right? They make a big deal about it. It's not just a regular atomic bomb, it's the doomsday device. And comparing that to the head and arm of the Statue of Liberty sticking up out of the beach at the end of the first movie, no comparison, guys. I'm sorry. The Statue of Liberty is, and I know this is a very kind of like Americo-centric point of view, but the Statue of Liberty is such an iconic moment that sets the tone, it sets the bar for the other movies, and the second movie didn't get there, which is unfortunate because it's they've created this amazing universe with all of these interesting little problems, and I think that they, instead of working on the problems that they had created, they kind of created more problems for themselves, and I don't think it went well.
I mean,
go ahead, Ellie.
The atomic bomb revelation wasn't so much of a oh my god moment as the I'm gonna peel off my face moment.
Yes.
that freaked me out.
Mm-hmm.
I was not expecting it. Everything looked ship-shape. I didn't question their faces. Nothing. And then suddenly they just go, and I go, oh wait, it's a mask? Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. And they pull it back. And oh my god, dude, the radiation! Oh god!
But
That was the freakiest moment for the entire movie for me, and I couldn't get over it.
But that begs the question: why would an entire society make masks for themselves when they're underground? And it was interesting, but it's
And how?
kind of weird. Okay, so we need to move on to our next movie in the list. I would like to go ahead and pick on Arachnophobia next, which is Arachnophobia is 30 years old this year. First of all, show of hands, who watched Arachnophobia as part of this? Okay, and how many of you, it's the first time you'd seen it was during this this project? Really? Okay, so I'm going to very quickly go. Several people described this movie to me, and I read a couple things about it, and I went, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. This is not a movie that I was ever interested in watching when it came out in the theater. Still not dying to watch this one, pun intended. So Ellie, we've really got to let you go first with this one, because you've got a great Arachnophobia story that I think you talked about in the first panel, but I just want you to drop it again on us real quick so we understand where you're at with this film.
Okay, so before I was married to my husband, before he was adopted into the family of my best friends, I knew his dad longer than he has. So when I was about 5, my now father-in-law showed me this bootleg VHS tape of Arachnophobia, along with some other movies I probably shouldn't have been watching at the time, but I was doing it anyway because, you know, he was like, oh yeah, you gotta watch these movies. So Arachnophobia was one of them. This is the movie that made me arachnophobic, because it taught me a very valuable lesson that to this day affects me, I guess, because I have a policy in my household where if you're outside of my current residence and you have more than 6 legs, then you may live as long as you're not inside my residence. If I catch you trespassing, the penalty is death. Either by cats or by book. I do not care. More than 6 legs, death. Unless my husband catches you, then he tries and catches it, and that's fine. But after seeing this movie when I was 5, that has never, ever, ever stopped me from being like, nope, you're dead. You're in my house. You're gone. Absolutely. Because that's basically the moral of this story, right? Because, you know, the woman walks in, and the husband is like, oh, we have this spider right here. I'm going to kill it. You know, you got to kill the spider. And the wife is like, no, I'm going to save it. I'm just going to take it outside. I'm going to put it in the barn. Yeah, well, guess what? You killed everyone. You killed everyone in the town because you didn't kill the spider that was in your house. It's your fault. You killed everyone. You're the murderer here. That's the moral of this story.
I still want to have a discussion later about what if it has 7 legs. But that's a different panel. It's a different panel.
That's a surviving spider.
Yes, it is. It's a gladiator. Sarah, how old were you when you were first exposed to the spiders?
I had to be probably around 11 or 12 when I first watched it. I was 8 when it came out, but we lived overseas and we had 4 stations and they weren't playing this. BBC One, BBC Two, ITV, and Channel 4. That's all we had. So that's probably about 11 or 12. And this has so much more plot than I remembered. Like, I didn't remember a story. I just remembered spiders. And also more xenophobia. I mean, they go off into Venezuela, encounter this very caricaturized kind of tribal society. They play boom, boom, boom kind of music every time they show the indigenous people. Well, no? Yeah. And then they take these things, yeah, and then the whole world is invaded by their killer spiders from this place. So yeah, that's a little uncomfortable for me. But what I really hated about this movie is that it creates reactions like it did in Ellie, because like this so scientifically wrong on every level. I was trying really hard not to die inside watching it. It's like they use a tarantula for the Venezuelan spider. Then they use all of these. It's a spider. Yeah, and then they use a little animal spider, and they use a bunch of really social friendly spiders from Australia for the soldiers, and they somehow they breed, even though they're completely unrelated in any way. There's no way that they would actually be able to breed, and if they did breed, they would create hybrids that wouldn't be able to breed, but they wouldn't be able to anyway. So it doesn't even matter. Maybe to get that far.
3 venom sacs.
Venom, they actually called them poison sacs at one point. A scientist called it a poison sac, and I'm like, I actually was yelling at the TV, so.
And like, oh my God, the researchers is what got me about this. You had professional researchers. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I've seen every venomous and non-venomous spider there is. We're going to find these specimens without any gloves, and we're gonna just grab them with our bare fingers.
And nowhere
Did
to
they
put
actually
them.
say?
No container, no anything.
Did they actually say venomous and non-venomous in the movie? Is that how they put it?
They have a lot of.
Because what's the third
They
category?
have a lot of
There's no third
scientific
category.
non-scientific lingo in this,
Mm-hmm.
so it's kind of up in the air.
What a shock. So Kyle, how about you? How old were you when you saw this movie for the first time?
Like 13 or something. Yeah. So it was.
Okay.
And I just really remember, and I think I'd only seen it maybe one other time since. I think I'd only seen it twice before this rewatching, and all I remembered was that all the creative like jump scares and okay, how are these different ways that we can have these spiders sneak up on
Really
these?
good at the jump scares. Really good at that.
And but I really enjoyed it, but just as the kind of movie that it is, but it certainly was actually in a lot of ways kind of like the old classic Universal movies that clearly didn't have like research department, but the and then we were talking about the like, oh, here, the wife, is telling Jeff Daniels, oh, yeah, go climb, face your fears, and go and climb the ladder. And
first of all, why would you tell your significant other to do that if you know it is their worst fear? Why would you do that to them? I don't get it.
Immersion therapy.
Yes, totally.
Oh God, no, man! I would slap Josh if he ever told me to do that. No.
And then he tells the story about when he was a kid that gave him the arachnophobia as a baby, and then the whole movie is like not really. He talks about being petrified. He's not petrified until the very end when he is to recreate that first moment. And I'm thinking like, okay, which is it? But
I really wanted the wife to show up at that point and be like, no, not this time, a-hole, Because she's been the strongest character the whole time to me. So, like, she was the only one who didn't suck.
The reason why we're here. It's just the reason why we have this problem.
So let me ask you a question.
That's not how it works.
Let me ask a pointed question. For what this movie is designed to be, is it good at that?
Yes.
I think so, yes.
It is designed to instill terror in others. Absolutely. They're so...
Okay, wait. Sarah's chewing on something there. Sarah, would you say yes also? Or
yeah, it's effective at scaring people and creating a false fear of things that are really beneficial to our world.
Yeah, the false fear is absolutely accurate. Because, like, I'm so glad that you guys made me watch this again. Because I'm sure you guys saw, well, these three here, because they were reliving my play-by-play texts as I was watching it again. And I'm sitting there going, okay, this doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. None of this actually makes sense. But they're really, really good at showing tension. They're really good at the very last second. You see the spider's legs coming up on their fingers, and barely see them and they don't quite get it, that is terrifying. And so they know what they're doing in that regard, even if it's kind of clear nowadays they didn't do their research on how this actually works biologically.
So they knew how to scare you, but they didn't know anything about what they were scaring you with. We're out of time on this one, but thank you guys. I really appreciate that. I want to I want, for the record, you have not convinced me to watch this movie, but I will reconsider it. I feel like I have watched this movie vicariously through Ellie's text messages. So speaking of living vicariously, terrible segue, our next 30-year-old movie is Gremlins 2, which apparently Steven Spielberg was willing to put his name on.
I'll fight you all. It was awesome.
Okay, here we go. Kyle, Ellie, smoke him if you got him. Sarah and I are going to have a little fight here because terrible. It was terrible. It was if that movie was an 85-minute commercial for the actors who were trying to continue to be relevant and the products that were trying to continue to get Americans to buy their junk food, then yes, it was a perfect movie. However, if you were actually trying to tell a story,
does not make sense at all.
I mean, okay, so hold on. Christopher Lee as the sadistic head scientist.
Dr. Catheter.
Count Dooku. Saruman from the Lord of the Rings.
But in this movie, what is he?
The head scientist. Dr. Catheter.
Catheter.
Oh my God, that was my favorite character in this whole thing.
That's Christopher Lee, who is he's just an awesome classic horror science fiction fantasy actor. He was great.
Yes.
And surrounded by dipsticks, but he was great. Okay, so you know what? I forgot to do the homework. Who saw the movie recently? Okay, and who is seeing it for the first time? Okay, all right. So Kyle, did you see this in the theater?
I think you did, actually. Yes.
You did. Okay.
Yes.
And the first movie was so good that you had to come for the sequel.
Yes. And because that was really right around when Gremlins came out, was really the first movies that like real, not kids movies, but that my dad took us to, and like 83, 84, 80, that kind of stuff. And it was a train wreck. It was just such off the rails mess. And I had totally forgotten that, like how much ridiculous. I mean, starting with the WB, logo stuff, with Daffy Duck, right?
Daffy.
And,
that threw me. I was like, this is a WB production?
And Hulk Hogan in the middle helping, to save the day from the gremlins that are up in the projector booth, which of course, now speaking of these anniversaries and does it carry on after this long, that part, I think for if like a millennial or something was watching it for the very first time here, they probably wouldn't get that part, like, oh, well, okay. It doesn't really translate, which actually I was thinking it would be fun that they did on video to like tweak that scene, like, or whatever, so that you would have that, like, what would that be today?
I tell you that as a millennial.
All right, Ellie, answer the millennial question.
Okay. First of all, I was really confused by the Clamp character. The main CEO dude who was like in charge of everything. I don't understand him. And I feel like the human plot didn't make sense. And the gremlin plot made way more sense than the humans. Because, like, you knew what their motivations were. But, like, with this dude, with Clamp, I don't understand him. So he comes in one day, and he's like, oh, I hate your drawing. What are you trying to do here? You might lose your job the next day. And then the exact next day, the same dude comes in, and he's like, oh my God, what is that? I love that drawing. This is what I'm going for. And suddenly the redhead lady person is like, oh, if you're into it, then I'm into it. I'm so confused right now. Was that the point? Was I supposed to be confused about the fact that they keep changing their opinions about everything?
I saw him as like Elon Musk.
Well, he was...
Right?
And he was actually, I mean, it was a ripoff on Trump, actually, because
really?
Yeah, Clamp, Trump, and then even when they come into the like gift shop or whatever, they're showing his book. It was exactly the same lettering of Trump's biography called Trump, but it
He's
said
so much
Clamp.
smarter.
Oh my
I know.
god, dude. Well, like
But they didn't know that yet, right?
after,
okay.
after the first
I'm
date,
sorry.
he was really nice to the main character, though. You know, and that's I think that's what really threw me off, because at one point he looks at the drawing the first day and he's like, "This is trash. Why do you bother doing this?" And then the next day he shows up and he's like, "This is fabulous. This is exactly what I'm looking for." And like me as an artist in the past, I'm like, "Wow, this is exactly what it's like. This is exactly what it's like."
But also, isn't it the worst attempt to show a character arc in a film? It's like all you get is that he survived and suddenly he likes the drawing, and that's it. That's his entire character arc.
That's what that makes sense.
I mean,
Okay, so Sarah, wait a minute, hold on. You like this movie?
I love this movie. I thought it
Love
was
this movie.
hilarious. It
Okay,
made
so-
fun of it. It made fun of the original at like every turn. It was hilarious.
Can you give us
It
an
was great.
example?
Okay. How about all of the looks down at notes. How about all of the people sitting around looking watching the surveillance video, and they're like bringing up all of these issues that had already been brought up by the fandom before in regards to the first one about like, well, what if there's food stuck in its teeth? And the guy's like, no, that's not the point. We're being invaded by gremlins. And he's like, well, what if they cross time zones in an airplane? And it's
I wondered if they did it on purpose. If
they did. It was all intentional.
Right.
Oh,
so
yeah.
to answer my question when I was watching it, I'm like, wow, this sounds exactly like, if you had actual, reviewers come up and say this stuff and you're trying to answer that.
Or if you did a panel on this movie at a convention, the audience might ask those questions.
Not 30 years later.
I think my favorite part of the movie was actually the fact that they got the sexual harassment. They gender flipped the sexual harassment.
Oh God,
in
that made me
1990.
Oh God, that made me cringe so bad.
Yeah.
I was sitting there and I was texting them about it, and then like they did that like very, very awkward like kind of half kiss but not really, and I was like, oh God, this makes me so uncomfortable. I don't know what's happening here.
They spent more time on her hair than they did on her character.
She reminds me of Miss Bellum from Powerpuff Girls.
Okay.
You know
All
that
right.
character?
No, yeah, I'm good with that. I
Character that
will
you
certify that joke is authentic.
Okay. Because if you've never seen it, you never see her face. You just see her outfit, and you see like the last ends of her curly red locks.
Yes, indeed.
Like Miss Bellum. I'm just saying.
Yep, might have been inspired. Powerpuff Girls might have been inspired by that strange red-headed harasser.
I mean, came out a couple years afterwards, so yeah.
Yeah. So
Sarah,
go ahead,
it's so
Kyle.
meta. It was, we had a period where you didn't have movies like that, and now we've got Deadpool, that really can make fun of itself and break the fourth wall and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that about that. And at first I couldn't take it. Like the first 30 minutes, I was like, oh my gosh, I had forgotten how silly this is. What am I watching? And then I just went with it. And like Sarah, as soon as I did, I had so much fun with it and just laughed my ass off, my butt off. And yeah, but the thing that got me was, okay, come on, like they just make an excuse, for the gargoyle gremlin,
But I love that. I love it though.
I was like, oh, okay, why of all things, that's the way that you think I'm gonna kill, him. And again, another Titan, right? Dick Miller, right?
Okay, go ahead, Kyle. You've been waiting 25 minutes to explain this. Go for it.
The connection between that and Audrey from.
Yeah. So the parents are played by Audrey and the flower eating guy from Little Shop of Horrors from 30 years before the Gremlins 2.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yes, I did not know that it was a wonderful coincidence that I discovered at the very end of all this. Is there's Mrs. Malaprop and there's the flower eater right there playing the parents, and and watching Dick Miller get in there and go, no, officer, you got to let me get in there. I've dealt with these things before. And the cops are like, you are off your nut.
Oh my God. That's beautiful though.
And then like the electric, you know, so all of that whole sequence of, oh, let me drink a you know, potion or something, and now it's spider, bat, you know, gargoyle, the electricity, the like, but turned into electricity, you know,
turned into a phone call.
And right, and I'm thinking like, okay, no one is worried about this. Like the Gremlins are bad enough, but nobody's worried about like a company that has all of these things that can basically turn something into electricity.
Yeah, they kind of glossed over that part, didn't they? All right, we got to give the last minute to Sarah who loved this film. Give us your favorite bits from Gremlins 2.
I think that because I was 8 when it released, and I mentioned in the before panel that Gizmo was basically our baby Yoda of my generation, that I think that I was a little bit more invested in the Mogwais in the opening. So while everybody else is sitting there going, oh, it was rough at the beginning, I'm going, oh, she took the wrong one. I was half crying. So, it turned me back into this little 8-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah, the genetics lab actually kind of bugged me a little bit because, like, no wonder everybody's afraid of those big bad GMOs.
Yeah, gosh.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the kind of crap that bring bank fed. But I kind of loved the bat signal.
Mm-hmm.
When he goes through the window is awesome. So, and of course the beautiful and enchanting gremlin at the end.
Right, gremlin. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
I love her.
Very
Oh
early
my gosh.
All right, guys.
gender, you know, recognition. It was
Yes.
very early, ahead of its time.
I have mixed feelings about that character. All right, guys.
Hang on, I got one more thing.
Go for it. Go.
It was ahead of its time because it foresaw all the problems with smart everything.
Oh,
And
God, you're right.
Oh, the building thinks you left, so you got to move around a little bit.
Yeah, they did kind of predict that. Yeah, when he's sitting there going like this to get the lights to come on. Yeah, I have to do that in my job currently. Also, it does. It predicted a lot of that stuff. Okay, so I predict that we have one more movie left. I think that if my math is correct, it's Tremors. Is 30 years old this year, which is interesting because while we were doing this project, Kyle, watch out, they're coming for. While we were watching Tremors for this project, Tremors 7 came out on video. They're up to the 7th Tremors movie, which means I have to rebuy the box set for like the 6th time, basically. Okay, so who watched this movie as part of our little homework assignment thing here? All right, and who is watching it for the first time ever because of this project? Okay, all right. So Ellie, we're gonna have you go first. This was the first movie in the series, so we don't have to worry about if you understood what was going on. But did you understand what was going on?
I absolutely did. Didn't need to understand anything else. I jumped in and I knew what was going on. I knew who the characters were. They were very good at establishing what each character was about for their personality. So they very much hit the show, not tell rule that I very much appreciate of because I didn't care until they showed me to care, you know? So, when I told my husband, I've never heard of this movie before, but we're gonna watch it, and I popped up, and he's like, "You've never heard of Tremors?" And I was like, "You have?" Because we are the exact same age, except for like a couple months. And he's like, "Yeah, there's like a whole series of this, and they're coming out with the new one soon." And I'm like, "Well, okay then, it's just me. I've just never heard of it." Okay. So yeah, I do recognize that it is a popular series, and I've just somehow missed it. I don't know how, but I did. My husband can attest to this, and he loves it. So he was very happy to watch it again with me. And I'm so glad you guys made me watch this movie. Oh my God, it's hilarious. My God, like, I know these characters are supposed to be like caricatures, you know, like super exaggerated, personalities that are like way over the top, but I know people like this. I know people
Yeah.
like, so it just really spoke true to me because of that. Especially the bunker couple who,
Yep.
who just had every kind of firearm, who was always prepared no matter what. They had, the stone like fortress going on there.
The bunker, yeah.
Like, I'm very surprised that did not hold up to the graboids. Very surprised that it did not hold up underground. But then again, who could prepare for underground threats when
Yeah.
you're thinking of aliens,
So Sarah, I'm gonna bug you about the science of this movie. How are you feeling about the science of this one?
Honestly, I wasn't evaluating the science of this one, so it can't have been as
Really?
bad as some of the other ones. I mean, yeah, the physics is going to be a little bit difficult going underground at concrete, where the concrete retaining wall somehow did stop one. But I was so shocked by this movie because I remembered it being this terrifying thing. Like, I remembered being so scared of it. And and I'm watching it now, and I didn't stop laughing like the whole time. It was awesome. I love the lesson that smart girls are way hotter than the ones I get used to.
This might be the movie that sparked the smart is sexy movement. It might
I
be.
don't think so.
You cannot prove me wrong. Go ahead.
But the smart graboid freaked me out a little bit still. Stumpy, I think his name is.
Stumpy, yeah.
He freaked me out a little bit. But wouldn't that couple be completely deaf after shooting all those rounds in this chamber?
Yes.
Also, I spent the entire movie going, God, she sounds so much like Reba. God, is that really Reba? And I'm not a country person. Like, I listen to metal, right? So I'm sitting here going,
I
she sounds
wondered
just
about
like Reba McEntire. And at the end, I was like, oh my God. When the song started playing, I was like, hang on.
I
Oh,
wondered about the noise, but at the same time, there was that scene when he finally got out the elephant gun he's been dying to show off, and they finally fired off, and she closes her ears for that.
Yeah, she covered her ears for the elephant gun, which is hysterical.
So,
It is one of the funniest gun moments in any movie ever, is when the camera has intentionally not shown you in the entirety of the basement bunker, and then the camera goes like this, and suddenly there's 700 guns, and the two of them are literally going, let's try this, okay, let's try this. It's a very funny moment. It's a very funny moment.
indeed.
Kyle, what about when did you first see this one?
Well, shouldn't we rock, paper, scissors for which one of us goes next?
Oh, very good. For those of you who haven't seen the movie, they do rock, paper, scissors. I think they use rock, paper, scissors better in this movie than in anything I've ever seen. Even rock, paper, scissors in Farscape wasn't this good, and that's high praise. So, okay, so Graboid beats rock. So you go first.
So much fun. I mean, I just had a blast rewatching it. So thank you again for this panel, for all the movies, but especially Tremors. And I mean, just so much fun with the beginning to end. And of course, they do trail off and don't get as good as far as the sequels are concerned and stuff. But I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
I think I actually got to see it in the theater. I remember seeing it in the theater, and I want to go back and see it in the theater again, because this is a theater movie. This is a popcorn movie by definition. For anybody who's not real clear, this movie is intentionally a throwback to the 1950s classic monster movies. I mean, the fact that we're talking about it at Monsterama is like 3 different ways perfect, because they wanted to make a classic monster movie. They wanted to come up with something original, which I think they did, and they wanted to kind of shock you and scare you more than try and gross you out. There are definitely some bloody moments, and there's some weird, disturbing moments, but I thought that this movie was a fabulous movie for making you want to yell at the screen, but actually the characters in it, even though they weren't incredibly intelligent people, when it came down to figure it out or die, they figured it out. They figured it out a lot. And I really appreciated the fact that the characters survived for the most part, and they figured things out, especially having Kevin Bacon have the last solution to the puzzle was great. because everybody had been giving him grief about being an idiot the whole movie, which is part of the joke and the charm of the movie and the character. So I love the puzzle solving. I love the fact that he kept asking the lady who was working on her PhD every question, and she finally lampshaded it and went, "Why are you asking me every question?" And the whole rest of the town is going, "Because you're the smartest person here." Maybe, you know. So I have loved this movie for a very long time. Ever since I first saw it, was delighted that its anniversary came up this year. I would actually say that one other thing about this movie that's fabulous is the one-liners and the dialogue, the cheap shots, the little comments.
So good.
So go ahead, Ellie.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I found out that I was actually a year younger than this movie, 1 year younger, and I absolutely love the dialogue. So it definitely held the test of time, man. 30 years, wow.
Yeah.
This was ahead of its time, I gotta say, especially in dialogue and character development.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, just very impressed.
Yeah. Now,
Since we can't
go ahead,
see-
Kyle.
Since we can't see the new Dune movie, this made up for it to be able to watch another sandworm.
Yeah. We're the new Dune movie's being delayed for some reason, but we can watch a lot of Tremors, and that'll make up for it. The one thing I do, in all fairness, one thing I do want to criticize about this film is it seems like they changed their mind about how to do monster cam halfway through, because initially the camera was above the dirt, which made no sense at all because it's an underground creature, but then they finally moved the camera underground, in both from the monster's point of view and from our point of view, somehow magically. So it just, that's the only thing that got me, is at one point I was like, okay, monster cam is funny and it's cool, but it's wrong. And this is a movie full of scientific strangeness, and it just they didn't care about the science in this movie. They just wanted to make a fun movie. But at that moment I was like, that didn't work, guys. But otherwise I thought this was just a fun ride.
Because they took so long to get to the monsters. Like, I know, because I was trying to take a picture of it for Instagram. And it was almost halfway through the movie before we actually saw the monsters. So I think that was part of why they did that, was because they were trying to build this, build up to it. But yeah, it shouldn't have been like a switch flipping. But
one of the things I want to do next year is, if we can, is have a panel with some people who know how to do monster cam and why we do monster cam, because that's a fascinating conversation that they sort of kind of got. Ellie, you want to get us out of here with one last thing?
Yeah, to contrast the whole switching the camera between above ground and below ground, I really appreciate that they started with above ground, because it helped walk me into what I was going to get into eventually. It showed me something familiar that I could actually relate to, and then it slowly brought me into the unfamiliar. So I had a little bit more of like a handheld, walk me into this new perspective type of feel to it that I really appreciated.
Okay. Well, excellent, guys. All right. Well, we are definitely way over time. We had a lot to say about all 6 of these movies, good and bad. So let me just ask one last question real quick before we have to pay the bills and get out of here. Was it worth it?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. This was a bizarre series of movies that all did seem to tie in together beautifully somehow, even though we were just going by the math. What I want to do is I want to go ahead and have you guys let us know where people can find you on the interwebs, so that if nothing else, they can disagree with you about these movies. I'm going to pick on Sarah first this time.
okay, I've got a website, sarahjsover.com. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and you can find me on Amazon, Double Crossing the Bridge.
Excellent. Kyle, what about you?
On social media, you can find me at Poet Kyle. And if you're interested in my poetry, I have 2 books. Slang is my first book. You can find on most of the retailers' sites. And A Dream of Christmas, which you can get on lulu.com.
Ellie?
You can find me at ellierain.com or necroseme.com.
Excellent. And my short stories are available on the Kindle on my Amazon authors store. Again, on Darren M. Bush, even though it says Monsterama right there. So let's do one thing real quick. I want to remind everybody that Virtual Monsterama 2020 is benefiting the MPTF, the Motion Picture and Television Fund. which provides temporary financial assistance for needs created or complicated by the COVID-19 pandemic. To learn more and to donate, please go to mptf.com. Again, that's mptf.com. And don't forget that fund supports people who made some of the films that we're talking about here right now on this panel. Speaking of this panel, one last thing before we get out of here. If you enjoyed this, or if you enjoyed hating our opinions of these movies, and you'd like to see us do this again, we would love to do this again, obviously. So please let the bosses at Monsterama know. Give us 5 stars if you agreed with us, and give us 5 stars if you hated everything we said. We'll come back next year and have more of these arguments. So what we're going to do now is, thank you. What we're going to do right now is we're going to say goodbye to everybody at Monsterama. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
This has been a presentation of Tables of Content. What kind of stupid name is that?